She sat quietly at the administrative desk organizing patient intake documents and medical records, her civilian hospital volunteer badge and routine paperwork suggesting she was just another support staff member helping process the constant flow of wounded personnel arriving at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center's trauma intake facility. The evening casualty reception brought standard medical coordination as military medical personnel triaged combat injuries and coordinated surgical interventions that saved lives of warriors returning from deployment zones throughout multiple combat theaters. But as she methodically filed discharge summaries and treatment reports, a stretcher team rushed through the trauma bay doors carrying a young Marine whose multiple shrapnel wounds and severe blood loss had left him barely conscious, until his unfocused eyes suddenly locked onto her face across the crowded medical facility, and his voice emerged as a weak but unmistakable whisper that made every medical professional within hearing distance freeze in recognition. "Dr. Martinez, you saved me. At Fallujah, you're supposed to be dead." Dr. Maria Santos continued filing medical records while processing the profound emotional impact of being recognized by a patient whose life she had saved during combat operations that had officially been classified and erased from her service record following her presumed death in an enemy mortar attack. The soldier's recognition represented more than grateful memory. It connected her current volunteer work with combat medical service that had cost her official military identity and required her to assume civilian status while managing survivor guilt and physical disabilities sustained during the explosion that had supposedly killed her. She wasn't supposed to be recognized by former patients, wasn't authorized to acknowledge combat medical service, wasn't prepared for the reality that her carefully reconstructed civilian identity was being challenged by someone whose life she had saved under conditions that officially never appeared in military medical records. From which military medical facility around the world are you following this medical recognition story today? If you appreciate narratives that explore combat medical service and the hidden healers who continue serving despite personal sacrifice, consider subscribing for more content that reveals the medical heroes who save lives in shadows while honoring their oath to heal. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center occupied 113 acres of strategically positioned medical territory in Bethesda, Maryland. Its trauma facilities and medical research infrastructure representing the most comprehensive military medical treatment center, supporting combat casualty care and advanced medical research that save lives of wounded warriors while developing breakthrough treatments for combat injuries and battlefield medicine applications. The installation served as the primary coordination center for military medical excellence, combining advanced trauma care, surgical innovation, and medical research that maintained American military medical superiority while supporting medical personnel who had served in classified medical operations and sustained injuries during combat medical service. Located at the intersection of multiple medical commands and research facilities, the hospital had been constructed with comprehensive trauma capabilities and specialized medical infrastructure designed to maintain combat casualty care even under challenging medical conditions and casualty loads that demanded advanced medical capabilities and specialized medical coordination. Advanced medical systems process trauma cases from hundreds of sources simultaneously, creating comprehensive treatment protocols that guided military medical effectiveness while protecting medical security for classified medical operations and combat medical personnel. The hospital medical architecture incorporated decades of advancement in combat medicine and classified medical research, including specialized trauma facilities, advanced surgical capabilities, and automated medical coordination systems that could maintain detailed patient care while protecting sensitive information regarding medical personnel backgrounds and classified medical operations. Medical personnel possessed multiple specialization levels that preserved medical security while enabling appropriate treatment decisions based on medical requirements and classified medical protocols. Dr. Maria Santos approached the administrative area carrying standard volunteer materials and civilian hospital documentation, her combat medical background having been classified and declared deceased following her injuries during combat operations. Though her current volunteer service seemed inconsistent with the extensive trauma surgery expertise that informed her medical assessment capabilities and combat medicine knowledge. The declared deceased process from military service had required comprehensive identity modification that eliminated references to combat medical service, while creating civilian background that concealed her survival from operations that exceeded standard military medical authorization and combat medicine protocols. At 39 years old, she possessed specialized training from the Army Medical Research Command's Combat Medical Innovation Division, having completed classified instruction in advanced trauma surgery, battlefield medicine applications, and experimental medical techniques before sustaining severe injuries during combat operations that resulted in her official death declaration and classified medical discharge from active duty. Her civilian volunteer record listed standard administrative support and routine medical facility assistance, though these cover designations concealed advanced combat medical expertise and operational medical experience that had been classified following her presumed death in combat medical operations. Her medical background included service at combat medical facilities whose operations remained classified above medical oversight levels, where military medical personnel and trauma specialists conducted medical operations that pushed the boundaries of current combat medicine and battlefield medical applications. The operations she had completed involved advanced trauma surgery, experimental medical techniques, and combat medical coordination that prepared medical personnel for battlefield medical scenarios that conventional military medical training could not replicate safely or effectively within standard medical parameters. The decision to accept civilian volunteer status rather than medical identity revelation had been influenced by operational security requirements and personal decisions that enabled her to continue medical service while managing disabilities sustained through combat medical operations. Her presence at military medical facilities as civilian volunteer provided medical support and administrative coordination, while her combat medical experience remained classified and officially unacknowledged by current military medical programs. Colonel David Patterson supervised the hospital medical coordination with authority gained through 32 years of military medical service and extensive experience in combat medicine and trauma surgery coordination. His expertise encompassing complex medical operations and advanced trauma care that supported military medical excellence and combat casualty care across multiple medical specialties and operational theaters. His background included medical assignments throughout Army Medical Command and liaison duties with combat medical organizations that developed next-generation medical capabilities and trauma treatment systems. His Legion of Merit and multiple medical service ribbons reflected exceptional performance in both medical operations and trauma care coordination that enhanced military medical capabilities and combat medicine effectiveness. The colonel's military medical career had evolved from conventional trauma surgery to combat medical coordination, including classified assignments with medical research organizations and combat medicine development agencies that created comprehensive medical systems and trauma care protocols. His transition from traditional medical practice to combat medical coordination had been driven by recognition that modern warfare required advanced medical capabilities and combat medicine applications that exceeded traditional medical boundaries and required interdisciplinary expertise in trauma surgery and battlefield medicine. Around the classified medical coordination table sat representatives from Army Medical Research Command, combat medicine contractors, trauma research organizations, and various medical development agencies, each contributing specialized expertise to medical coordination and combat medicine development procedures that enhanced military medical capabilities while maintaining medical security for classified medical operations and advanced trauma care programs. The assembled group represented decades of collective experience in combat medicine, military medical operations, and trauma care coordination that maintain medical effectiveness through comprehensive medical coordination and combat medicine optimization. Major Jennifer Walsh, the trauma coordination specialist responsible for combat medical operations and advanced trauma care oversight, possessed 22 years of experience in military medical operations and held specialized medical credentials that provided comprehensive oversight of combat medicine programs and trauma care development. Her background included specialized training in combat trauma surgery, medical operations analysis, and military medical coordination procedures that enabled coordination of advanced medical operations while maintaining appropriate medical security and trauma care effectiveness protocols. Major Walsh's expertise bridged the gap between theoretical combat medicine and practical military medical applications, translating advanced trauma care theory into functional medical systems that supported combat operations while maintaining readiness for medical challenges that exceeded current trauma care capabilities. Her role required constant evaluation of medical effectiveness, trauma care assessments, and combat medical coordination to ensure adequate medical preparation for evolving combat requirements and emerging trauma care applications. The military medical team under Walsh's coordination represented carefully selected specialists recruited from leading medical institutions and combat medicine organizations, each bringing unique expertise to the complex challenge of providing advanced combat medical care while maintaining medical excellence standards that preserve patient care effectiveness and medical operational reliability. Their work remained partially classified, but their medical decisions directly influenced combat effectiveness and medical coordination that protected military medical capabilities and trauma care programs. Captain Robert Chun, the medical operations officer responsible for trauma assessment and combat medical coordination, possessed extensive experience in military medical operations and specialized trauma care that enabled coordination of comprehensive medical operations through sophisticated medical networks and trauma care procedures. His understanding of combat medical capabilities encompassed both conventional medical operations and specialized approaches that pushed the boundaries of current trauma care and provided medical capabilities that exceeded standard military medical programs. The medical operations commander's background included specialized training in combat medical coordination, trauma care operations, and advanced medical methodologies that enabled identification of medical capabilities and trauma care potential that conventional medical systems might overlook or fail to develop effectively. His responsibility for medical operations required constant medical advancement and strategic thinking that anticipated combat medical requirements, while maintaining medical effectiveness for emerging trauma care challenges and medical coordination. Colonel, recent medical assessments indicate possible gaps in our former combat medical personnel recognition protocols that might affect medical security and trauma care coordination for personnel with classified medical backgrounds, Major Walsh reported, her voice carrying medical precision that characterized professional combat medical evaluation. Medical command sources suggest former combat medical personnel serving in civilian capacities who may not receive appropriate recognition for their medical service and trauma care contributions, though specific medical details remain classified above our coordination level. Her assessment reflected constant evolution of medical personnel support that characterized contemporary military medical management, where combat medical veterans often transitioned to civilian positions that might not receive appropriate recognition while their medical service demanded comprehensive acknowledgement and medical community support. The evaluation indicated recognition gaps that required enhanced medical coordination measures and updated protocols to maintain medical effectiveness and combat medical personnel appreciation. The current medical assessment represented months of medical support analysis that had identified patterns suggesting inadequate recognition of combat medical veterans serving in civilian capacities and medical support activities that exceeded standard medical personnel management assumptions. Medical support intelligence sources had reported recognition gaps and medical coordination limitations that indicated preparation for medical morale issues that required enhanced combat medical personnel recognition and specialized medical support coordination. Major, what specific capabilities do our current medical coordination systems provide for identifying combat medical veterans serving in civilian capacities and ensuring appropriate medical recognition and support coordination? Colonel Patterson inquired, his question reflecting command responsibility for understanding medical coordination limitations and ensuring adequate recognition for military medical veterans and combat medical service. The question addressed core challenges facing medical planners in contemporary military medical operations, where combat medical service created recognition requirements that demanded appropriate acknowledgement, while medical support programs required coordination that honored medical service and combat medical contributions. The assessment of current capabilities versus medical support requirements was critical for determining recognition adequacy and medical support planning requirements. Sir, we've enhanced our medical personnel coordination systems and implemented advanced recognition protocols designed to identify combat medical veterans serving in civilian capacities and medical support roles that might not appear in standard recognition databases. Captain Chen explained. His report reflecting systematic approach to medical support optimization that balanced recognition capabilities with operational limitations of current medical support systems and combat medical coordination programs. However, some classification restrictions could prevent identification and proper recognition of combat medical service, requiring medical support review and strategic planning that might take months to implement effectively. His analysis highlighted fundamental challenges facing modern medical support, where classification requirements created barriers to appropriate recognition, while combat medical service demanded acknowledgement that challenged existing medical support structures. The balance between current recognition protocols and medical support optimization required continuous review and strategic planning that anticipated medical support developments before they materialized into actual medical personnel morale vulnerabilities or recognition failures. Santos quietly moved through the administrative areas conducting routine volunteer activities while maintaining her civilian volunteer status, her movements deliberately helpful and administrative to avoid attracting attention that might compromise her classified medical background or reveal her combat medical expertise to personnel who lacked appropriate knowledge of her medical service and trauma care experience. Her combat medical training enabled recognition of medical discussions and trauma care assessments that volunteer personnel might interpret incorrectly or fail to understand entirely. Her experience in combat medical operations provided unique perspective on trauma care requirements and medical coordination that informed her understanding of military medical operations and combat medical preparation. Though her classified medical status remained unknown to medical personnel, who viewed her as dedicated civilian volunteer with exceptional attention to medical administration and patient care support. The volunteer activities that Santos conducted served multiple purposes beyond routine administrative support, allowing her to observe military medical operations and identify potential medical coordination gaps through pattern recognition techniques learned during combat medical operations and trauma care training. Her specialized knowledge enabled recognition of medical vulnerabilities that conventional volunteer procedures might overlook, providing insights that could enhance overall medical effectiveness and trauma care coordination. The administrative facilities represented months of construction and medical planning designed to provide optimal patient processing and medical coordination while supporting daily operations that maintained medical readiness and trauma care effectiveness. Advanced medical systems, comprehensive patient care capabilities, and medical administrative infrastructure created medical advantages that sustained trauma care operations even under challenging conditions and medical coordination pressures. The medical specifications that guided administrative operations incorporated lessons learned from previous medical deployments and theoretical advances in trauma care developed by medical specialists and combat medical coordination experts. Each medical component had been carefully designed to provide patient care and medical flexibility that eliminated medical gaps while maintaining efficiency for medical operations and trauma care requirements. Dr. Santos, continue volunteer activities while medical personnel complete trauma coordination and patient care requirements. Captain Chen instructed, his guidance reflecting standard volunteer protocols while acknowledging civilian volunteer support that Santos provided through her administrative duties and medical facility coordination. His instructions contained routine volunteer recognition and medical coordination requirements that preserved medical security regarding combat medical operations while maintaining appropriate volunteer support for trauma care and medical coordination activities that required administrative support and medical facility management. Santos positioned herself near the trauma care areas while maintaining volunteer duties that provided cover for observing military medical operations and trauma care coordination that might indicate medical gaps or coordination limitations. Her classified medical background enabled recognition of medical capabilities and trauma care parameters that volunteer personnel might interpret incorrectly or fail to evaluate properly. The volunteer activities that Santos conducted automatically incorporated advanced medical analysis techniques learned during combat medical operations that emphasized medical innovation and coordination thinking beyond conventional volunteer support. Her ability to evaluate military medical operations enabled identification of potential coordination improvements and medical vulnerabilities that purely volunteer thinking might miss entirely. The patient recognition incident occurred approximately 30 minutes into administrative volunteer duties, the distinctive medical emergency and trauma care requirements triggering immediate recognition that connected her civilian volunteer status with combat medical service that had saved lives under enemy fire and resulted in her presumed death during combat medical operations. The recognition characteristics indicated legitimate combat medical service rather than routine volunteer work, suggesting combat trauma care experience that demanded immediate acknowledgement and appropriate medical recognition. Her recognition of the wounded Marine's identification reflected medical service and patient care that connected her to operations that officially remained classified, combat medical missions where her trauma surgery expertise had been demonstrated under enemy fire while saving lives that exceeded normal battlefield medicine requirements and medical coordination. The patient's recognition indicated medical service that suggested either medical knowledge or patient memory that justified acknowledging her combat medical background and trauma care expertise. The patient's recognition indicated genuine combat medical service rather than routine medical care or standard volunteer procedures, though the implications of revealing her medical background created emotional complexity that demanded careful appreciation and appropriate medical recognition procedures. The authenticity of the recognition required medical verification, while military medical tradition demanded appropriate acknowledgement of combat medical service and patient care. Instead of immediately responding to the medical recognition, Santos carefully evaluated the trauma care situation while internally processing the profound impact of being recognized for combat medical service that had cost her official military identity and medical career. Her combat medical training included extensive instruction in medical tradition and patient care procedures that honored combat medical service while maintaining appropriate respect for medical service and patient dignity. The medical recognition process required balancing immediate emotional response with medical tradition that honored combat medical service and patient care while maintaining personal privacy regarding specific combat medical operations and injuries. Her specialized background provided understanding necessary for appropriate medical courtesy while appreciating recognition that honored her medical service through dignified acknowledgement and patient respect. The combat medical characteristics reflected in the patient's recognition matched military medical protocols that indicated legitimate combat medical service using advanced trauma care rather than conventional medical volunteer work or routine patient care. The proper medical precision suggested combat medical service that exceeded current volunteer coordination and indicated trauma care expertise that demanded immediate recognition and appropriate medical courtesy. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis, the medical coordination specialist responsible for monitoring trauma care and patient coordination, noticed unusual patient recognition patterns through routine medical observation designed to maintain patient care quality and coordinate appropriate medical treatment procedures. Colonel Patterson, we have civilian volunteer receiving patient recognition that indicates combat medical service background and may require coordination assessment and appropriate medical recognition protocols. Her observation reflected medical monitoring capabilities that tracked patient care activities and identified potential recognition requirements through careful observation of medical interactions and patient coordination activities. The monitoring systems represented medical tradition protocols designed to provide identification of medical recognition opportunities and coordinate appropriate responses that maintain medical courtesy while preserving trauma care effectiveness and medical coordination. The combat medical recognition gathered through Davis's observation provided critical information about medical service and patient care that informed medical coordination and recognition procedures. The medical analysis of patient care activities enabled assessment of medical recognition requirements while maintaining medical protocols that honored combat medical service through appropriate recognition and medical courtesy. Lieutenant Commander Davis, medical tradition requires appropriate recognition and courtesy for combat medical veterans who have served with distinction and saved lives under enemy fire. Colonel Patterson replied, his response reflecting command understanding of medical recognition requirements and medical courtesy that honored medical service and combat medical contributions. Combat medical service and patient care under fire demand recognition that transcends current assignment status and honors the commitment these medical professionals have made to saving lives and medical excellence. The Colonel's response demonstrated systematic approach to medical recognition that characterized effective military medical leadership, where combat medical service required immediate acknowledgement and appropriate courtesy regardless of current volunteer status, while maintaining medical tradition that honored medical service. The priority placed on medical recognition reflected understanding that combat medical service created permanent medical honor that required consistent medical courtesy and respect. Santos approached the trauma care area with measured movements that maintained her civilian volunteer dignity while acknowledging the medical recognition that her combat medical service had created among medical personnel. Her combat medical background enabled accurate understanding of medical tradition and recognition procedures that honored combat medical service and patient care. Her approach toward the trauma care area appeared professional to observers, but represented profound emotional response to acknowledgement of medical service that had cost her military medical career and official identity. The medical tradition that informed her understanding provided context for appropriate recognition responses and medical courtesy that honored combat medical service through dignified acknowledgement. Colonel Patterson, I appreciate the medical recognition and courtesy for my combat medical service, Santos replied respectfully, her voice maintaining professional bearing while conveying gratitude for acknowledgement that honored her trauma care and patient care under enemy fire. My combat medical operations represent commitment to saving lives regardless of personal risk, and continued service through volunteer coordination enables me to contribute to medical excellence and patient care. Her response provided context for the medical recognition while acknowledging medical courtesy that honored her combat medical service and patient care. The distinction between combat medical veteran status and civilian volunteer work was secondary to medical commitment that enabled continued contribution to medical operations through available capacity and professional dedication. Major Walsh studied the recognition with renewed understanding, her medical background enabling appreciation of combat medical service acknowledgement that honored medical service and military medical tradition through appropriate recognition and courtesy. Dr. Santos, your combat medical service and continued dedication represent the highest tradition of military medical service and commitment that honors both individual medical sacrifice and institutional medical values. Her acknowledgement reflected institutional appreciation of Santos's medical service, while recognizing combat medical service that demanded medical courtesy and medical recognition. The depth of medical service commitment indicated military medical tradition that honored combat medical veterans regardless of assignment status and suggested recognition requirements that maintained medical courtesy and medical appreciation. The combat medical recognition that Santos received represented institutional acknowledgement of medical service and combat medical contributions that exceeded volunteer status and honored military medical tradition through appropriate medical courtesy. Her combat medical service had earned recognition that transcended assignment limitations and demonstrated commitment that demanded medical appreciation and military medical respect. The medical courtesy that Colonel Patterson demonstrated became reference point for medical recognition and combat medical service acknowledgement, illustrating importance of maintaining institutional capability to honor medical service regardless of current assignment status. The recognition honored combat medical veterans through military medical tradition while maintaining appreciation for continued medical service contribution and professional dedication. The medical recognition protocols that Santos experienced demonstrated military medical tradition in honoring combat medical service and patient care through appropriate medical courtesy and medical appreciation. The acknowledgement honored medical service commitment while recognizing medical service that demanded institutional respect and military medical tradition regardless of assignment status or volunteer capacity. Her combat medical service included trauma surgery under enemy fire, saving multiple lives during classified medical operations and demonstrating medical commitment that exceeded personal safety considerations. Each medical service demonstrated military medical tradition that honored medical commitment through combat medical effectiveness, while maintaining medical excellence despite personal risk and medical sacrifice. The military medical recognition that Santos received reflected medical tradition in acknowledging combat medical veterans and medical service through appropriate courtesy and medical appreciation that honored commitment regardless of assignment status or volunteer capacity. 8 months after the combat medical recognition incident, Dr. Santos accepted position as trauma care coordinator, providing specialized medical assessment for military medical operations and combat medical preparation programs. Her appointment reflected institutional recognition that exceptional combat medical experience and trauma care knowledge required appropriate utilization while honoring medical service through meaningful contribution and professional advancement. Her progression from civilian volunteer to medical coordination demonstrated military medical capacity for recognizing and utilizing exceptional combat medical experience when medical expertise could enhance trauma care effectiveness and medical preparation. The advancement reflected institutional learning about maintaining medical recognition and appropriate utilization regardless of previous presumed death status and assignment limitations. Today, Dr. Santos leads the Combat Medical Excellence Division, overseeing trauma care coordination and medical training that supports military medical installations throughout the medical command structure. Her team continues to advance medical effectiveness and trauma care methodologies that protect medical personnel while maintaining combat medical readiness and patient care excellence. Her position represents utilization of combat medical experience that transitioned from presumed death to civilian volunteer service to medical coordination supporting critical trauma care operations and combat medical preparation programs. The trajectory demonstrated how combat medical experience and trauma care knowledge could enhance institutional capabilities for medical effectiveness and combat medical readiness. The organization she leads has become model for integrating combat medical expertise with trauma care requirements, attracting medical expertise and combat medical experience that enhances medical effectiveness. Her success has inspired similar programs that seek to utilize medical expertise while honoring medical service and maintaining medical excellence. The woman they had assumed was just filing medical forms had become valuable medical asset for advanced trauma care programs, proving that exceptional combat medical experience often exists within individuals whose medical service continues contributing through humble dedication. Sometimes the most profound medical honor comes from continued service despite sacrifice, and institutional effectiveness benefits from recognizing medical expertise regardless of assignment status or previous presumed death. Her story continues to inspire medical personnel and combat medical veterans who understand that medical service creates unique capabilities for enhancing military medical effectiveness, demonstrating that combat medical experience will find purpose when given appropriate opportunities to contribute to meaningful medical missions that honor medical commitment and trauma care expertise. The recognition from patients whose lives she had saved became testament to medical service that transcended official records and honored the sacred trust between combat medical professionals and those they served. In saving others, she had found her own path back to the medical service that defined her identity and purpose, proving that true medical calling cannot be erased by administrative records or presumed death declarations, but lives on in grateful memories and continued dedication to healing. Her journey from combat zones to civilian volunteer work to medical leadership represented the resilience of medical professionals who understand that healing is not just a profession, but a sacred calling that transcends circumstances and continues regardless of official status or recognition. The wounded Marine's whispered recognition had restored not just her identity, but her rightful place among those who dedicate their lives to saving others.